As Nostradamus, he predicted the Detroit terrorist who blew up. People who don't remember that.
Oh, that was
the guy that blew up his stick?
That was the best. Yeah, he had the bomb, and then the guy in the seat next to him just beat the shit out of him. It's like, that's the...
Not today.
He tried to take out Detroit.
Yeah.
And now it did Bob's Big Way, a couple of crack houses. He was just being hazed by other terrorists.
And he's just in jail with a burnt penis and a black eye.
Smoldering
Like,
penis.
really just backfired.
I sat next to John McClane on a plane.
He thought he was... And I don't even think he actually blew up his penis. I think it was just smoldering.
Yeah, I think it just caught fire. And
Just
the
got his ass
guy next to him was like, is that smoke? And just knew he could punch it out.
Yeah. He was being terrorist punks. They're like, yes, it's a
It
bomb.
was a Muslim terrorist. He was circumcision by fire.
Put it on your
And he still had to land in Detroit.
Yeah, I'm sure everybody in Dearborn was like, yeah, put it in your pants.
He's going to do it.
He is a son of a bitch.
And a terrorist who thinks he's going to 72 versions, and instead he just he scalds his dick and gets his ass kicked, and nothing else happens.
Like
And makes Detroit look good.
Yeah.
That's a trifecta.
It makes it look like a desirable target.
Yeah, it's like, well, it might not be the nicest place, but I understand they'll just beat the crap out of a terrorist.
Gerard Butler's hard for work. We need Detroit has fallen. Can someone...
Yes, dude, oh, it's already happened.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. It was hilarious. You know, whenever there's a terrorist getting his dick burnt off, it's awesome.
And then man bunch. I'm just imagining, some guy at this point in time, I don't know, probably reading like his Tom Clancy, and he just, gets a little bit of ash on him.
It burns!
Just kicks
It burns! I'm on fire!
Like there was no contingency plan. There was no contingency plan in case the guy had fists.
What's great is like, you stopped the underwear bomber, and he's like, oh, I just was hitting.
Yeah.
I don't know.
The guy was annoying. I didn't know he was a
that's
terrorist.
good. I just punched.
Maybe we can get him on the show.
I
Wait, the terrorist?
Yes.
Just he's still icing himself.
He's one of those Civil War looking ice packs and a bandage across his jaw.
It still hurts.
See, that's why ISIS makes so many videos. They're like, we need a lot of recruits.
Yeah.
It's backfired. Well, it front fired. Call that a freedom torch.
So,
Anyway.
no merchants?
Is there no fortune for me?
There wouldn't be able to use him. Fair point.
You get nothing.
I'll just go back to my roommate, MC Corkscrew.
I'm living with 6 ducks now.
They made an exception, just for me. You know it's not normal that Folsom Prison has ducks.
I just hang out with my friends. Oh. Oh, good time.
Okay, so cigarettes, penis.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.
The Lexus ES, now available with all-wheel drive.
Friends with benefits, something sexual, then it's fine. But when these guys are starting to look for something long-term, you avoid women with who have a history of long-distance relationships. Guys, get the likes up. I'm already looking around, and I'm seeing them not up. I'm not seeing them up. Congrats on the brand deal. Appreciate it.
More receptive, the more positive you are about your dating life, the better quality men you'll start to attract.
Oh, Lola, what do you got for me? Thanks, Letitia.
So, hi, Kevin.
Hi.
First, I wanted to say congrats on the brand deal.
Brand deals are good.
And, yes, congrats. I believe, yes, you can be single too long. From the female
You're lost.
Okay.
You're lost.
Earn your degree faster at Purdue University Global. With over 175 online programs nationwide for you. Start today at the 3-week risk-free trial. Apply now at purdueglobal.edu.
This one's the perfect gift for the friend who's been getting a little too comfortable during quarantine. Maybe your son, a father, or your boyfriend. In which case, it's really a gift for your...
On the African Rebel. I see some pictures in her phone as well. She has some pictures of some guys, brother. You guys are both cheating on each other. Why is this?
Wait, like what kind of picture?
Some photos with some guys, my brother. Yes, those kind of pictures.
Yo, what up, bro?
And what's that other girl? Where's she at?
That's my wife.
Right, then kiss her if that's your wife.
You want a kiss?
Oh my gosh. Then we all can kiss, yes.
Yeah, let's do it. Oh yeah, I have other boyfriends too.
You have 2 girlfriends.
I ain't got one.
She told me you have 2 girlfriends. You just kissed on camera.
No, you didn't.
I'm so confused. What's going on?
What the fuck are you doing?
I'm so sorry.
Now, why were you being racist to me?
I'm a bit.
You said you're what?
I'm a bit.
Hi.
What's going on?
I think I got like a presentation about you. Aren't you like?
Yeah, who am I then? What's my name?
Oh, wait, I don't know, but aren't you a freedom fighter or something like this? You fought for freedom?
Yes.
Yeah?
My name is Joseph Kony.
I don't remember the name, but thank you.
Yes.
Good.
How do you like Germany, my brother?
It's pretty good.
Yes, I want to come and visit.
You want to come and visit?
Yes, I would like to come and visit.
Those are weird. I thought he was gonna troll motherfuckers on a video game.
Sacrifice. You get to pick your damn sacrifice. That's all. You don't get to not make one. You're sacrificial whether you want to be or not. This is the Peter Pan story, roughly speaking. Peter Pan is this magical boy. Pan is the god of everything, roughly speaking, right? And so it's not an accident that he has the name Pan. And he's the boy that won't grow up. And he's magical. Well, that's because children are magical. They can be anything. They're nothing but potential. And Peter Pan doesn't want to give that up. Why? Well, he's got some adults around him, but the main adult is Captain Hook. Well, who the hell wants to grow up to be Captain Hook? First of all, you've got a hook. Second, you're a tyrant. And third, you're chased by the dragon of chaos with the clock in its stomach, right? The crocodile. It's already got a piece of you. Well, that's what happens when you get older. Time has already got a piece of you. And eventually, it's got a taste for you. And eventually, it's going to eat you. And so Hook is so traumatized by that he can't help but be a tyrant. And then Peter Pan looks at traumatized Hook and says, well, no, I'm not sacrificing my childhood for that. So that's fine, except he ends up king of the Lost Boys. In Neverland, well, Neverland doesn't exist, and who the hell wants to be king of the Lost Boys? And he also sacrifices the possibility to have a real relationship with a woman, because that's Wendy, right? And she's kind of conservative, middle-class, London-dwelling girl. She wants to grow up and have kids and have a life. She accepts her mortality. She accepts her maturity. Peter Pan has to content himself with Tinkerbell. She doesn't even exist. She's like the fairy of porn. She doesn't exist. She's the substitute for the real thing. And so, but the dichotomy that you're talking about is very tricky, because there's a sacrificial element in maturation. right? You have to sacrifice the pluripotentiality of childhood for the actuality of a frame. And the question is, well, why would you do that? Well, one reason is it happens to you whether you do it or not. You can either choose your damn limitation, or you can let it take you unaware when you're 30, or even worse, when you're 40. And then that is not a happy day. And I see people like this, and I think it's more and more common in our culture because people can put off maturity without suffering an immediate penalty. But all that happens is the penalty accrues, and then when it finally hits, it just wallops you. Because when you're 25, you could be an idiot. It's no problem. Even when you're out in a job search, it's like, well, you don't have any experience and you're kind of clueless. It's, yeah, you're young, you know, it's no problem. That's what young people are like, but they're full of potential. Okay, well, now you're the same person at 30. It's like people aren't so thrilled about you at that. What have you been doing for the last 10 years? Well, I'm just as clueless as I was when I was 22. It's, yeah, but you're not 22. You're an old infant, right? And that's an ugly thing, an old infant. So, part of the reason you choose your damn sacrifice, because the sacrifice is inevitable, but at least you get to choose it. And then there's something that's even more complex than that in some sense, is that the problem with being a child is that all you are is potential, and it's really low resolution. You could be anything, but you're not anything. So then you go and you adopt an apprenticeship, roughly speaking, and then you become something. And when you're something, that makes the world open up to you again. You know, like if you're a really good plumber, then you end up being far more than a plumber, right? You end up being a good employer. Not that plumbers, I'm not putting plumbers down. It's like more power to plumbers. They've saved more lives than doctors. So, hygiene, right? So, you know, if you're a really good plumber, well, then you have some employees, you run a business, you train some other people, you enlarge their lives, you're kind of a pillar of the community, you have your family. Once you pass through that narrow training period, which narrows you and constricts you and develops you at the same time, then you can come out the other end with a bunch of new possibility at hand. And Jung talked about that. He thought that the proper path of development in the last half of life was to rediscover the child that you left behind as you were apprenticing. And so then you get to be something and regain that potential at the same time. Very, very smart. Well, he was very, very smart, so that's very wise thing to know. Sacrifice. You get to pick your damn sacrifice. That's all. You don't get to not make one. So you're sacrificial whether you want to be or not. That's a good thing to know as well. Dostoevsky said that in Notes from the Underground, a great, great book. And, you know, he said, I love this. It was his an early criticism of the notion of a political utopia. He said, look, if you gave people everything they wanted, they had nothing to eat but cake, and nothing to do but sit in warm pools and busy themselves with the continuation of the species. That was his lines. That the first thing they would do, well, maybe after the first week, was like go kind of half insane and smash everything up just so that something that they didn't expect would happen, so that they'd have something interesting to do. And it's so right, because, you know, the utopian notion that if you just had all the material stuff you wanted, that you'd be, well, what would you be? What would you do? Would you just sit on the couch and watch TV? I mean, you'd be, I don't know what, you'd be cutting yourself just for entertainment in no time flat, you know, and that's the sort of thing that people do. And so we're not adapted for security and utopia. We're adapted for a certain amount of security because, you know, we are vulnerable, but mostly we want to have one foot out where we don't know what the hell is going on, because that's where you're alert and alive and tense and with it. And you know, I believe this, and I believe it actually has something to do with the hemispheric structure of the physiology of your brain, is because the right hemisphere looks roughly adapted to what you don't know, and the left hemisphere, this is an oversimplification, but a useful one, is adapted to the world that you do know, and the right place for you to be is halfway between them. Because that, you can tell that. That's what's so cool. And this tells you that this is actually reality that's manifesting itself to you. you know, that sense of active engagement you have in the world when things are working well for you, you know, where you should be at the right time. You're alert and on top of things and engaged, and you don't have much of a sense of time, and the sense of the tragedy of life sort of recedes, and that's when you've got one foot where it's secure and one foot out in the unknown, and your brain signals to you that you're in the right place by making what you're doing meaningful. And that sense of meaning is actually a neurophysiological signal that you've got the forces of the cosmos properly balanced in your being at that moment. And that's why it feels so good. Now, well, what else could it possibly be? I mean, you know, our brain is capable of looking beyond our vision. That's what it's for. And that sense of engagement, there's no reason to assume that that's anything but a real signal. And you can reduce it. You can say, well, the problem with being where you know only is that you don't know everything. And that's going to be a problem in the future. And the problem with being where you know nothing is, that's just too much, man. Like, you know, you go into panic mode and because anything can happen there and you can't handle it. So you got to mediate between those two things. You want to be secure enough so that your physiology isn't revving out of control, and you want to be out there in the unknown enough so that you keep updating yourself constantly. And that's the place where information flow is maximized. And you know that because that's where you are when you're having a really interesting conversation with someone, where you're gripped by a book, or you're really into a movie, or maybe something that you do as you know, apart from your work, or maybe even in your work, you're into it. And that's because you are in the right place at the right time, and your whole nervous system is signaling that to you. And I would say that's the sort of place that you should be all the time. Of course, you can't be because no one's perfect, but that's the recreation of paradise on earth. It's something like it because you are in the right place at the right time when that is happening. We're mobile creatures, right? We need to know where we're going because all we're ever concerned about, roughly speaking, is where we're going. That's what we need to know. Where are we going? What are we doing? And why? It turns out that the way that we're constructed neurophysiologically is that we don't experience any positive emotion unless we have an aim. We can see ourselves progressing towards that aim. It isn't precisely attaining the aim that makes us happy. As you all know, if you've ever attained anything, because as soon as you attain it, then the whole little game ends. Then you have to come up with another game, right? So it's Sisyphus. And that's okay, but it does show that the attainment can't be the thing that drives you because it collapses the game. That's what happens when you graduate from university. It's like you're king of the mountain for one day, and then you're like surf at Starbucks for the next 5 years, you know. So, yeah. So what happens is that human beings are weird creatures because we're much more activated by having an aim and moving towards it than we are by attainment. And what that means is you have to have an aim, and that means you have to have an interpretation. And it also means that the nobler the aim, that's one way of thinking about it, the better your life. And that's a really interesting thing to know because, you know, you've heard ever since you were tiny that you should act like a good person and you shouldn't lie, for example. And you might think, well, why the hell should I act like a good person and why not lie? I mean, even a 3-year-old can ask that question because smart kids learn to lie earlier, by the way. And they think, well, why not twist the fabric of reality so that it serves your specific short-term needs? I mean, that's a great question. Why not do that? Why act morally? If you can get away with something and it brings you closer to something you want, well, why not do it? These are good questions. It's not self-evident. Well, it seems to me tied in with what I just mentioned. It's like, you destabilize yourself and things become chaotic. That's not good. And if you don't have a noble aim, then you have nothing but shallow, trivial, and they don't sustain you. And that's not good because life is so difficult, it's so much suffering, it's so complex. It ends and everyone dies and it's painful. It's like without a noble aim, how can you withstand any of that? You can't. You become desperate, and once you become desperate, things go bad to worse very rapidly when you become desperate. And so there's the idea of the noble aim, and it's not something, it's something that's necessary. It's the bread that people cannot live without, right? That's not physical bread. It's the noble aim. And what is that? It's to pay attention. It's to speak properly. It's to confront chaos. It's to make a better world. It's something like that. And that's enough of a noble aim so that you can stand up without, cringing at the very thought of your own existence, so that you can do something that's worthwhile to justify your wretched position on the planet. And whatever it is that is you has this capacity to experience reality and to transform it, which is a very strange thing. You can conceptualize a future in your imagination, and then you can work and make that manifest. You participate in the process of creation. It's an amazing idea because it gives consciousness a constitutive role in the cosmos. The condition that suffering is an integral part of existence. Now, it's an important thing to understand. It's also a viewpoint shared by the bulk of the great religious systems of the world. Life is suffering. Why? Well, one reason is because of society's arbitrary judgment, right? Every single one of us has traits and features and quirks and idiosyncrasies that are far from ideal and that are judged by the standards of society as insufficient. And so you suffer because of your imperfect insufficiency in the eyes of others. And you can certainly make the claim that fairly frequently that's arbitrary. And so that's the claim that society is tyrannical and judgmental and needs to be constantly reconstituted so that the tyrannical element doesn't take full control. And fair enough, you have to stay awake so that that doesn't happen. But the thing is, it doesn't matter what society it is, although they vary in the degree of their tyranny. The mere fact that you're grouped together with other people and have to come up with a common value structure in order to live together means that many of the things that characterize you are going to be suboptimal. And so the price you pay for social being is that much of you is deemed insufficient. Now, hopefully there are various ways that you can be within a society that's sufficiently diverse so that you can find a place where what's good about you in the eyes of others and perhaps in your own eyes can flourish of its own accord. Because you don't have to be good at everything. If you can be good at one thing well enough, that might allow you your niche. And hopefully a healthy society allows for that. Certainly societies can become so tyrannical that they don't. So you can lay one source of human suffering at the feet of tyrannical social structures, but the other element of it, clearly, is the mere fact of the arbitrariness of the natural world. You have a lifespan that's going to be counted in the number of decades that you can count on two hands. And that has nothing to do, technically, with the tyranny of the social structure. Now, you could say, if we got our act together more completely, perhaps you could live longer, and fair enough, but the fact of the limits of your lifespan and the suffering that's necessarily a consequence of that, the death of your parents and the death of most people that you will know before you, means that that part of suffering is an integral part of existence itself. And so that can't be laid at the feet of an insufficient social structure except insofar as it's tyrannical and blind. It's a condition of existence. And then by the same token, you have your own responsibility for some of your unnecessary suffering, because there's things you could be doing to make your life better and to make life better for other people that you know perfectly well that you're not doing. And so if you stopped doing all the unnecessary things that make your life bad, then it would improve to some degree that is not really computable because you don't know how far you could push that. So there's three reasons why you suffer, and one is, well, look at you and the way you're built. It's inevitable. There's not very much of you and there's a lot of everything else. And so you just don't last that long, and you're fragile across multiple domains, and then you're harshly treated by society, and there's no doubt about that. And then there's responsibility that can be laid at your own feet. Well, the existential take on that, and the thing that all these diverse people that we've been talking about, including Viktor Frankl, and including Alexander Solzhenitsyn, as well as Kierkegaard, Nietzsche, and Dostoevsky, and the people that I've already talked to you about, is that the proper pathway through that is to adopt the mode of authentic being. And that is something like refusing to participate in the lie, in deception and the lie, to orient your speech as much as you can towards the truth, and to take responsibility for your own life and perhaps also for the lives of other people. And there's something about that that's meaningful and responsible and noble, but also serves to mitigate the very suffering that produces, say, the nihilism or the flee into the arms of or the escape into the arms of totalitarians to begin with. You need something to shelter you against your own vulnerability. And you can adopt a comprehensive description of reality that's formulated for you by someone else that neatly divides the world into those who are innocent and perhaps innocent victims, and those who are guilty and perhaps the perpetrators of the suffering. But none of that has anything to do with you, and in addition, it's simply not a reasonable way of assessing the world. The suffering is built in. So that's why there's an existentialist insistence upon that. So that for the Freudians, the psychoanalysts, and even for people like Carl Rogers to some degree, if you're in a situation that's characterized by psychopathology, if there's something wrong with you mentally, that's a consequence of something gone wrong. But that's not the existentialist take. The existentialist take is, no, that's just how it is. That's just how it is. You don't have to necessarily have done anything wrong for things to get completely out of control. It's a terrifying doctrine, but it's not a hopeless doctrine, because it still says that there's a way forward, there's a pathway forward, and the pathway forward is to adopt a mode of being that has some nobility, so that you can tolerate yourself and perhaps even have some respect for yourself as someone who's capable of standing up in the face of that terrible vulnerability and suffering, and that the pathway forward, as far as the existentialists are concerned, is by, well, certainly by the avoidance of deceit, particularly in language, but also by the adoption of responsibility for the conditions of existence and some attempt on your part to actually rectify them. And the thing that's so interesting about that is, well, too, as far as I'm concerned, and some of this is from clinical experience, you know, if you take people, and I've told you this, and you expose them voluntarily to things that they are avoiding and are afraid of, you know, that they know they need to overcome in order to meet their goals, their self-defined goals. If you can teach people to stand up in the face of the things they're afraid of, they get stronger. And you don't know what the upper limits to that are, because you might ask yourself, like, if for 10 years, if you didn't avoid doing what you knew you needed to do, by your own definitions, right, within the value structure that you've created, to the degree that you've done that, what would you be like? Well, you know, there are remarkable people who come into the world from time to time, and there are people who do find out over decades-long periods what they could be like if they were who they were, if they spoke their being forward. And they get stronger and stronger and stronger, and we don't know the limits to that. We do not know the limits to that. And so you could say, well, in part, perhaps the reason that you're suffering unbearably can be left at your feet, because you're not everything you could be, and you know it. And of course, that's a terrible thing to admit, and it's a terrible thing to consider, but there's real promise in it, right? Because it means that perhaps there's another way that you could look at the world, and another way that you could act in the world, so what it would reflect back to you would be much better than what it reflects back to you now. And then the second part of that is, well, imagine that many people did that, because we've done a lot as human beings. We've done a lot of remarkable things, and I've told you already, I think before, that today, for example, about 250,000 people will be lifted out of abject poverty, and about 300,000 people attached to the electrical power grid. We're lifting people out of poverty collectively at a faster rate that's ever occurred in the history of humankind by a huge margin. And that's been going on unbelievably quickly since the year 2000. The UN had planned to have poverty between 2000 and 2015, and it was accomplished by 2013. So there's inequality developing in many places, and you hear lots of political agitation about that. But overall, the tide is lifting everyone up, and that's a great thing. And we have no idea how fast we can multiply that if people got their act together and really aimed at it. Because, you know, my experience is with people that we're probably running at about 51% of our capacity. I mean, you can think about this yourselves. I often ask undergraduates how many hours a day you waste, or how many hours a week you waste. And the classic answer is something like 4 to 6 hours a day. You know, inefficient studying, watching things on YouTube that not only do you not want to watch, that you don't even care about, that make you feel horrible about watching after you're done, that's probably 4 hours right there. You know, you think, well, that's 25 hours a week, it's 100 hours a month, that's 2.5 full work weeks, it's half a year of work weeks per year. And if your time is worth $20 an hour, which is a radical underestimate, it's probably more like 50 if you think about it in terms of deferred wages. If you're wasting 20 hours a week, you're wasting $50,000 a year. And you are doing that right now. And it's because you're young, wasting $50,000 a year is a way bigger catastrophe than it would be for me to waste it, because I'm not going to last nearly as long. And so if your life isn't everything it could be, you could ask yourself, well, what would happen if you just stopped wasting the opportunities that are in front of you? You'd be, who knows how much more efficient? 10 times more efficient. 20 times more efficient. That's
being efficient with your time is something that I've slowly grown to understand, you know. Knowing your skills and trying to build your skills and sacrificing the time to improve yourself is something else I've learned slowly over the years. And that's why you guys catch me in this motherfucking studio so much. Because I think to myself, if I was this dedicated 10 years ago, like you said, you can't quantify that. There is no telling where I would have been right now if I would have been this dedicated 10 years ago. But shit don't get easier as you get older if you waste too much time. So when it comes to my art now, I don't fuck around. I don't fuck around and I don't waste no time, because I know in another 10 years, this shit gonna have me somewhere that I probably can't even imagine right now. But it's all about being dedicated. Dedication. Whatever it is, man, whatever you want to do in life, just do that shit. And you never know. I'm giving myself 15 more years, man. In 15 years, I need to be fucking retired somewhere. Just painting every day, all day. And so I have a goal. That is my goal. I just gotta take the baby steps towards accomplishing that goal. Yeah, man, I'm getting hungry. slowly but surely. Let's blend these colors. I blend them in.
The Lexus ES, now available with all-wheel drive.
Concern for the opinions of others, find out who you put up with being laughed at on occasion. Look around you and give yourself a good shaking to find out who you really are. Sense tells us that a modicum of concern for the opinions of others is useful in the cultivating of good relationships and the maintenance of social cohesion. But most people care too much about what other people think, and in this video, we will explore how this is damaging to our psychological health. We will then look at how becoming more comfortable with ridicule, rejection, and the disdain of others can greatly increase our chance of living a fulfilling life. Ever ceases to amaze me, wrote Marcus Aurelius. We all love ourselves more than other people, but care more about their opinion than our own. In the modern West, a great emphasis is placed on the attainment of social validation and on looking good in the eyes of others, and this is creating a population of men and women who are stunted in their development, for social validation is derived primarily from one thing: success in the external world, or at least the appearance of it. Title: our material possessions, the size of our bank account, our physical looks and fashion choices, the status of the people we associate with. Such are the things that bring the validation that so many crave. But this excessive orientation to the world of people, places, and things is not a healthy way to live. For as Carl Jung writes, the man whose interests are all outside is never satisfied with what is necessary, but is perpetually hankering after something more and better which, true to his bias, he always seeks outside himself. He forgets completely that, for all his outward successes, he himself remains the same inwardly. The outward lives of men could do with a lot more bettering and beautifying, but those things lose their meaning when the inner man does not keep pace with them. Jung was no ascetic who denied the value of worldly success. Rather, his point was that without a bettering and beautifying of the inner man, or what amounts to the state of our psyche, external success will leave us none the richer. We can surround ourselves with an opulence of material goods. We can attain the contemporary social ideal of beauty and style. Our peers can admire us, but if the inner man is neglected, misery and suffering will haunt our days. Or as Jung explains, To be satiated with the necessities of external success is no doubt an inestimable source of happiness, yet the inner man continues to raise his claim, and this can be satisfied by no outward possessions. And the less this voice is heard in the chase after the brilliant things of this world, the more the inner man becomes a source of inexplicable misfortune and uncomprehended unhappiness in the midst of living conditions whose outcome was expected to be entirely different. The externalization of life turns to incurable suffering, because no one can understand why he should suffer from himself. Is the sickness of Western man. Excessive orientation to the external world and an accompanied neglect of our inner development is the sickness of the West. What is the cure? We should step off the path of conformity, as to conform means to seek social validation through the ideal of external success. And we should reorient our life so as to bring more order, harmony, and strength to our psyche. We must, in other words, live a more authentic life, a life that heeds the call of our inner man. Or as the 16th century philosopher Michel de Montaigne explains, whatever it be, whether art or nature, that has inscribed in us this condition of living by reference to others, it does us much more harm than good. Taught ourselves out of what is actually useful to us in order to make appearances conform to common opinion. We care less about the real truth of our inner selves than about how we are known to the public. One of the few who stops living by reference to others necessitates a diminished fear of ridicule, rejection, and the disapproval of others. For one who fears such things will remain a conformist, and thereby forever susceptible to the sickness of which Jung spoke. And so, in recognition that a fear is best diminished by exposure to the feared object, we can turn to the ancient philosophical practice of intentionally behaving in ways that elicit social disapproval. Senator Cato, a follower of Stoic philosophy who lived in the 1st century BC, was an advocate of this practice, and as William Irvine writes in his book, A Guide to the Good Life, The Ancient Art of Stoic Joy, the way to overcome our obsession with winning the admiration of other people is to go out of our way to do things likely to trigger their disdain. Cato made a point of ignoring the dictates of fashion. According to Plutarch, Cato did this not because he sought vainglory. To the contrary, he dressed differently in order to accustom himself to be ashamed only of what was really shameful, and to ignore men's low opinion of other things. In other words, Cato consciously did things to trigger the disdain of other people, simply so he could practice ignoring their disdain. Another famous figure who engaged in this practice was Diogenes the Cynic, who lived in the 4th century BC. On an almost daily basis, Diogenes took actions that evoked ridicule, rejection, and disdain. As but one example, he would walk backward into theaters against the flow of everyone who was exiting, for the purpose of acclimating himself to acts of nonconformity. When he did this, people would mock him and question his purpose, to which he replied, "You ashamed that while you're walking in the wrong direction in life, you scoff at me for walking backwards?" Was so successful at detaching himself from any concern of what other people thought of him that he reached a level of freedom most can only dream of. Other people's opinions no longer constricted him. The burden of social validation did not weigh on him, and instead of shaping his life to look good in the eyes of others, his sole purpose was to cultivate a greatness of self through mastery of body and mind. One said to Diogenes, "Most people laugh at you." He replied, "And doubtless donkeys laugh at them. But just as they pay no heed to the donkeys, I pay none to them." Approach to life did not result in Diogenes being looked down upon by all of his peers. Rather, many famous figures admired him. Alexander the Great was so impressed with his character that he stated, "If I were not Alexander, I would like to be Diogenes." While the great Stoic philosopher Epictetus considered Diogenes to be the rare example of a real-life sage. "But I can show you a free man," said Epictetus, "to save you from having to search any longer for an example." Diogenes was free. Move toward the ideal of a Diogenes, we may find it useful to adopt the following mindset when engaging in our practice. We are not performing acts of nonconformity merely to look like a fool, nor to attract attention or annoy people. Our purpose is to learn more about human nature and more about our own. We are practicing what Nietzsche called psychological observation, and so when our actions elicit ridicule or disapproval, we can follow the advice of the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, who counseled the following. If you come across any special trait of meanness or stupidity, you must be careful not to let it annoy or distress you, but to look upon it merely as an addition to your knowledge, a new fact to be considered in studying the character of humanity. Your attitude towards it will be that of the mineralogist who stumbles upon a very characteristic specimen of a mineral. The way to ease the sting of ridicule is to remember that very often the people who are quickest to judge and the most excessive with their insults are those whose opinions matter least. They are not men and women of sound mind, but individuals consumed by the sickness of the West, who use criticism as a means to project their misery and self-hate onto others. And as Epictetus wrote, "Who are these people whose admiration you seek? Aren't they the ones you are used to describing as mad? Well, then, is that what you want, to be admired by lunatics?" Ancient philosophical practice of voluntarily exposing ourselves to ridicule and rejection will teach us an important lesson. The world does not end when someone shames us, and no harm really comes to us when others disapprove of our ways, so long as we are comfortable with the actions we take. With time, insults and negative judgments by other people will become mere empty words that may pass through our ears but do not disturb our mind. We will no longer feel compelled to live by reference to others, and if we are then willing to listen to the call of our inner man or woman, a greater life will open before us. Free of the fear of ridicule, we will be free of the sickness of Western man. The greatest height of heroism to which an individual can attain is to know how to face ridicule. Better still, to know how to make oneself ridiculous, and not to shrink from the ridicule.
I'm so hungry.
Red itchy mosquito bites? This genius college student just solved a 210 million-year-old bug problem with a device that eradicates mosquitoes from any environment. And for Americans, it's predicted to be in every home within 5 years. Oscar, a 21-year-old cybernetics student, was...
One big racial question that's up right now is whether or not we will have reparations for slavery. You've heard this for the first time in a major presidential race. A huge number of the candidates are saying they support reparations for slavery. And even Joe Biden has supported a commission to talk about whether or not we should have reparations. So Don Lemon will go half of Tweedledee Tweedledum on CNN. Don Lemon brings up this question of reparations. And Columbia professor John McWhorter, who is a liberal, but is a little more reasonable as far as liberals go, he goes on the show and he says, Don, whether or not you want reparations or not, we've already had them.
I'm a little wary of the idea that we should think of that as a microcosm for what should happen for Black America, because, not because I'm against reparations, but because reparations for Black America already happened, starting in the late 60s. Affirmative action was reparations. People didn't use that word, but that's precisely what it was. The Community Reinvestment Act of 1977 that forced banks to invest in inner cities. Nobody makes a movie about that, but that was reparations. If affirmative action didn't help to turn Black America upside down, then why do we fight red tooth, claw, and nail whenever anybody threatens it? It created a huge Black middle class, and it created Black success of all kinds that wouldn't have happened without it. I think affirmative action was a great thing, but I do think that it was a reparation.
I love this argument. I love the angle he's taking here, because he's saying, look, some kind of reparation is perhaps justified. And this was the opinion of basically everybody after the Civil War, right? They said 40 acres and a mule, that was going to be the promise, because you can't just say to a huge number of people, okay, you've got your freedom now, but you don't have any property, and you don't really have many political rights, and you've got people who are really opposed to you having political rights, and okay, so it'll work out fine, right? No, it probably won't. Now, should we have reparations hundreds of years later? I think that argument's a little weaker. But to me, the cleverer argument is we've already had them. Of course we have. If affirmative action, if the racially focused welfare programs of the last 60 years in this country are not a reparation, then what the hell are they? What's the point of them? If they're not a reparation, get rid of them. If we're gonna do something else now, then we absolutely need to scrap all of those programs.
Yeah, get rid of all the programs. I don't give a fuck, because once again, the African American population is roughly 13% of the nation. So if you scrap all the fucking housing programs and even motherfucking other so-called minority ethnic groups use all these same policies and shit to get what the fuck they want. So if you scrap all of this shit, fine, more power to you. Because a lot more people gonna lose out than fucking black people. And that's why the shit ain't reparations, because everybody can apply for all this fucking shit. And everybody gets it. And affirmative action, that shit just ain't for black people no more. Because now Mexicans and Saudis and everybody else can use the same shit. So don't say, oh, we already gave you reparations. No, you didn't. If you gave it to us for the wrongdoings of slavery, then nobody else would qualify for it. No one else would qualify for it. No one. But everybody qualifies for the same fucking shit we get. Everybody qualifies. Every time there's any stride made forward for the black community, it's not just for us. Everybody else takes a piece of that fucking pie too. So no, I don't feel like some form of reparations have ever been paid back to African Americans for the heinous acts of slavery. And yeah, and that's the thing. I don't care what you say. Oh, well, we gave you this. Oh, well, we gave you that. Fuck that. Where does wealth reside? In ownership, not opportunities. Oh, well, we gave you the opportunity to apply for this program to receive these benefits. No. That ain't wealth. Wealth is ownership. I want my own land. Give me my 40 acres like you said, motherfucker. Well, we gave you a form of reparations. We just didn't call it reparations.
It's not a reparation. Why do black students get preferential treatment when they apply to college? Why are white students and Asian students put at a disadvantage? They have to score higher on the SAT, they have to get better grades, they have to do better than the black students to get into the same colleges. That's a reparation. Well, okay, if it's a reparation, then we've already got it. But what this shows you, and this I think is the brilliance of McWhorter's argument here, he hasn't even come to this conclusion explicitly, but I think it's implied. One of the arguments against reparations is, what do you think is going to happen? We're going to, okay, $10 billion. There you go. That's the reparations. We're good now. It's all good. No more racial grievance? Of course not. It's never going to end. There's no end point to that. And the proof of this is we've already tried it, and there was no end point to it.
When did you try?
Before you go, make sure you ring that bell, you subscribe, you like, you get the notifications. You can head on over to Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, all those places. Subscribe to the audio podcast. We really appreciate it. You can leave a 5-star review. And, oh, what? Oh, this thing? This is my upcoming book, Speechless, Controlling Words, Controlling Minds, which is available now for pre-order. It's dropping on June 22nd. You can get a signed first edition copy at Premier Collectibles. This one, I'm glad I have the physical copy so I can prove to you. This one, unlike my first book, has actual words in it. Go check it out. See you next time.
Guys, there are better ways to get your bush ready for summer.
The brand new Lawnmower 4.0 from Manscaped.
It's a whole new balls game. Oh, I must say, this is a sexy beast.
Just look how it shaves. Actually, that's alarmingly bald.
The Lawnmower 4.0 features ceramic blades plus skin-safe technology.
It really is skin-safe technology, though. Really sweet.
It's waterproof and cordless, so you can take it in the shower. 4K LED light, so you can see exactly where you're trimming. You don't miss any hairs.
Look at these.
Oh, you got a 4K light.
Natural.
Whatever, bro. 4K LED lights.
By noticing that as each speaker gets up here, and his supporters get to go ahead and applaud, I would like to start off by applauding the people that have the courage to stand up against this hate.
You're certainly welcome to applaud anybody you like. I take no responsibility for who applauds for what.
Well, you haven't given them space. That was my point. But I do have questions here. What I was saying is the structure here has been very specifically designed to go ahead and to support a particular point of view.
Could you give an example of that? Because here's what I think happens. People come up and ask me a question, and then I give them an answer. And then somebody else comes up and asks me a question, and then I give them a different answer. Could you please show me the nefarious and unfair structure of that Q&A?
I'll be happy to, because after their last comment, you get a chance to comment, and your supporters go ahead and applaud. When the speaker is then going ahead and when the person from the audience is talking, you immediately talk afterwards, and there's no space.
Yes, that's true, because they're asking me a question, because I'm the speaker and they're the ones asking the questions.
Exactly.
Right. So I guess they can go give a speech somewhere else, and then their supporters can go and applaud them. But that's not what we're engaged in here.
So you do agree then that there was...
I agree that I'm giving a speech and people are asking me questions. I agree with that, yes. I didn't know that I had to clarify that.
So let me go ahead and, frankly, there's so much misinformation here, I don't even know where to start, but I will try. You talk about melting pots and assimilation. I don't know to what extent you cook in the kitchen and you don't cook. I have no idea.
Well, I'm of Italian descent, so I can work my way around the kitchen a little bit.
If that's the case, then you will know that a melting pot is not something that you take a pot, you put the first ingredient in, and you add other things, and you expect everything else to go ahead and take on the flavor of that first ingredient. Rather, a melting pot is a mixture of different ingredients, and some of those ingredients you want to blend in, and other ingredients you want them to maintain their character, and you don't want them to blend in very much, and you put them in a particular order. And you talk about what makes America. There's plenty of things in this country that are a huge problem, and there's plenty of things in this country that are very good. One of the best things about this country is that as each culture comes in, we're able to go ahead and look at that culture and take on
the best things from that culture. America is not a English only culture. We have taken on from all different cultures, and it's the strength of this country that we have gone ahead and taken on. It's the strength of this country that you can't look at people and tell which ones are Americans and which ones are not.
That's what I said in my speech.
That's
literally what I said in my speech.
What you said is you expect them to assimilate.
Right, I expect assimilation, and I said it's a beautiful thing in this country that you can't look at someone and tell who's the American and who isn't. I said the exact same line that you just said.
But you seem to imply that when people come in...
Well, you know what they say happens when you assume. Yeah, is there a question or is this a speech?
Yes, there is.
What's the question?
Okay, so the question is do you realize that 100 years ago, you mentioned that previously people have come in and then they immediately assimilate. 100 years ago, there were areas in New York City where you couldn't function if you couldn't speak Yiddish, if you couldn't speak German, if you couldn't speak a Slavic language. 130 years ago in Kansas, in a very large area in Kansas, German was such a predominant language that the Native Americans assumed that the language in this country was German, not English. We've never
that would be a true tragedy.
We've never had a situation where people come in and they immediately start speaking.
I never claimed that people immediately assimilate. I never claimed that in my speech. I think you're making fine points. They're just not points that in any way contradict what I've been saying this afternoon.
I'd like to ask just one more question, then I'll leave. In the past, when the young Americans have had speakers here, you mentioned that each person gets one question, and you've been very accommodating about letting many of us have a conversation. But in the past, there's never been that kind of a statement, and I'm just wondering why there would be a statement here. It sounds like you're afraid of having a conversation, though I will admit that you have been carrying on a conversation. And I just want, in closing, I just want to say that what's really important is that we embrace other ideas and other cultures, not that we assume or force people to go ahead and take on what's already there.
Well, I appreciate your comments. I would like to point out that it seems you have criticized me for saying things I didn't say. I agree with many of the points that you've made, and then you're criticizing other speakers who have spoken for Young Americans Foundation instead of me. So I'm pleased that you had a nice time at the lecture. I agree with many of your points, and I love the open exchange of ideas. I heard you, sir.
Pillow. Why do we make our pillow in the shape of a cube? I'll tell you. The problem with pillows is that you're trying to fit a round peg into a square hole, or rather a pillow-shaped peg into a shoulder-shaped hole.
I'm a full-time professor here. I also am Italian-American, and I happen to agree with the protester in the back.
Well, I have to say, as a professor, that you would come. I really appreciate that, because I know students come out a lot, but professors don't always come out to hear opposing points of view, so that's a wonderful thing.
It's my duty. But
I've left you speechless. I've dazzled you.
Thank you. In 1492, before a racist and genocider came to this land, there were people living here. Every inch of this land was occupied.
Just as a matter of history, not every inch of the land was occupied. There were huge areas that were completely wilderness.
I was quiet the entire time you spoke. Those people still exist. The North American indigenous people, Central and South American, they're still here. And I would like to know how you can say that they have no ancestral claim to this land, and that as a white person, you can say that they cannot migrate freely and cannot use the land freely that they rightfully own and have for thousands of years.
Well, Michael, I'd like you to be more specific.
which people specifically and which land specifically. Because there were lots of different peoples in the northern and southern, in North America and South America at the arrival of Christopher Columbus. So which people do you think have a claim to which land?
I'm talking about the Native Americans.
But there were many different Native American tribes.
Would you like me to name all the tribes?
Yes, and I'd like you to name, and the reason I would like you to name all the tribes is because there were many tribes who conquered many other tribes. So just as an example, thank you. Just as an example, the Comanche Indians come in and they conquer areas run by the Apache Indians. Now the United States comes in and it owns that land. To which tribe should that revert? To which tribe should that land revert? The Comanche who had it before us, or the Apache who had it before them? Moreover, for the people who still exist, you're referring to Christopher Columbus in an ahistorical way by calling him some sort of racist or some sort of genocidal maniac. The man never committed any sorts of genocide at all, and he was actually known among the Spanish explorers for his good treatment of the natives. That point is neither here nor there. And I encourage people to read biographies of Christopher Columbus because there's a lot of historical fiction out there. The point on that is that when the Spanish came to this country, into this continent, they did create a new race known as Latinos. This is a mixture of Spaniards and Native American populations. So if we are going to revert certain land to native populations, why would we not then immediately take that land away from them because they also descend from Spanish explorers? In what sort of atomized way would you define your own race, your own identity? I think this is a very backwards and ultimately impossible view of personal identity that puts your stock in some particular ancestor rather than something that is larger than yourself. I think it's a madness of the modern left, and it leads to crazy policy proposals, such as saying that somebody who descends from a native population in Colombia has a right to move to any apartment he wants to in New York because of race or something. We can certainly have a response.
Thank you for not answering my question, and in the future,
I think I did answer you. How specifically could I answer your question?
If you could not lower the microphone until the person's done speaking, I think that'd be better for everyone. Thank you. That's all.
So you were done speaking.
In the next 60 seconds, I'm going to show you a smoothie recipe that will kill your cravings and boost your metabolism. This shake is something that I eat every single day, and it helps me stay lean and healthy all year round. After a long day, all I used to want to do is sit down and watch.
So, you cited a list of statistics in your talk which you claim support the idea that illegal immigrants are dangerous or criminals.
I cited a number of statistics that show that they commit federal crimes at a significantly higher rate than native-born Americans. Yeah.
Okay. So what role do you think that structural racism and inherent bias has to play in those statistics?
I don't think that the people who enter this country illegally are forced to do so by some sort of systemic racism. There's no systemic American racist going down to El Salvador and saying, you better get up and sneak into the United States. And there's nobody in the United States who forces people who come here illegally to commit crimes. I think the premise of this question is actually quite offensive, though it's a popular assumption, which is that illegal aliens somehow don't have free will. It's the assumption that illegal aliens are somehow morally uneducated. They have no sense of right and wrong. They have no ability to control their emotions and their impulses. This is obviously profoundly racist and not true. We have free will. We have the ability to do what we want to do. This is why, by the way, the majority of Hispanic people in the United States and Hispanic voters oppose illegal immigration. The races are exactly the same. The ethnicity is exactly the same. The question of crime is different because race does not determine your criminality.
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that people of color are more likely to be convicted of crimes unfairly than white people.
They're more likely to commit certain crimes, that's true. I don't think that's because of their race. I think it's because of aspects of their free will and perhaps of culture.
That's not true. I'm talking about...
That is true. I mean, what I just said is true.
I'm not quite sure where you're getting your statistics from, and you choose
from
to
the federal government.
You choose to interpret
From
them
the
in your...
Bureau of Justice Statistics and
can I
Department of
talk?
Homeland Security.
Can I talk? Is that
Well,
okay?
you said you didn't know where I got my statistics from, and I'm telling you where I get them from.
Well, it would have been nice if you could have let me finish my sentence. Anyway,
Well, I was answering your question.
You are using your statistics for your own political agenda, and that's your
I'm
prerogative.
citing statistics because they're true.
I'm talking about the fact that I'm faculty here. I also support our protester in the back.
What do you support specifically? Do you think that anti-immigrant rhetoric is violent free speech?
Yes, because of the
You
reasons
think that
I'm
speech
talking
is
about.
violence?
No, I think that
That's what that sign says.
the conversation that you're having is oppressive. And
So
it
I am
contributes-
oppressing people by what I'm doing. So I am exerting violence on people by my speech. That's what the sign says, and that's what you just said.
It contributes to
And the
racism.
protester is saying that's exactly what I'm doing, and she's saying that's exactly what her sign means. So that means that you, a faculty member at an American public university, paid for by taxpayer dollars, are conflating speech with violence.
Yes. Speech can be violent. What you are saying contributes to systemic racism in this country. It means that my students of colour are pulled over and accused of stealing a car when they did not.
I'm not pulling anybody over for stealing
I'm
any
not
cars.
saying that you
I see many
personally
people
did.
of many different races in this room. They all seem to be doing just fine. I don't think any of them have felt violence because they listened to a lecture on basic facts about our immigration system. The question was, have I asked people in this room if they've felt as though some violence has been committed on them? No, I haven't asked, because no violence has been committed on you. Because violence is not a subject, violence is an objective fact. I can objectively gauge whether or not someone has become violent. The other day, I was at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Some protester attacked me with some weird chemical. That was an objective act of violence. But somebody disagreeing with me, such as some people in this room are doing, are not committing violence on me. And I would say to you, as a faculty member at a taxpayer-funded university, this is the foundation of liberal education. If you cannot understand that there is a difference between speech and violence, you don't understand anything that undergirds the liberal arts or liberal education. And that is a real shame. And I say this with all respect and with great distress for our universities. If our teachers don't understand the difference between ideas and violence, between speech and violence, then they are in no position to educate the next generation of Americans.
I've been to art school for 8 years. I understand liberal arts extremely well. I am an artist, and
I don't think you do. I'm sure you've been to art school for 8 years, but you do not understand the
holding
liberal
up a sign
arts.
which says "Disrupting speech is fascism." You are
No, the sign says anti. Oh, that one, disrupting speech.
Yeah.
But yes,
you understand?
Yes,
You
these
get it?
people who are yelling are disrupting my speech, and I agree, it's fascism.
You're interrupting me, and I think that you need to look up violence in the dictionary or expand your idea of violence.
Hold on, I'll look it up right now. Hold on. Let me look it up. Let's see. Violence definition. Hold on.
You might need a sister wife.
Violence definition. So you're saying that violence can be speech. Oh, my Wi-Fi went out. That's too bad. I'll look it up later. I'll post it on my Twitter. Violence is not speech. Let me say it again. Violence is not speech. Let me say it for all the professors in the room. Violence is not speech. Speech is not violence.
Has never been more powerful. It can save lives, lift your community. You have the power to finish this. Vaccination appointments are available today, so get yours and get us back to us. Find the vaccine at pa.gov/COVID. Paid for with Pennsylvania taxpayer dollars.
Simply Unlimited, our most affordable plan for unlimited data, calls, and texts, with rates starting as low as $30 per month for each line. Try Simply Unlimited today.
Very disturbing news out of Vernon Central High School.
What's going on?
Undertax and students have guns.
We are in charge now, so pull out whichever app you use to do live streaming video. Get them up and running and point it at me. Now!
There's guys with guns everywhere.
Get down on the ground. Any more friends back there?
Is it safe to say that this might be our guardian angel? Do you want more people to die?
That's the last thing I want.
I'm gonna kill one person in this room every 5 minutes. Don't show your face. You have no idea who you're dealing with.
Isn't it ironic? After all your hard work, people aren't gonna remember you?
No?
They're gonna remember me.
The Joe Rogan experience.
And everything else with that. And, you know, you brought up an interesting point, too, not to keep going down the rabbit hole, but the other thing that I thought really interesting was when you look at waste component, because I feel like we're not maybe looking at that as much as we should be when we're talking about trying to feed a bunch of people. It's like, well, maybe we should start with what we're throwing away that we wouldn't have to.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, like, at first I just thought, like, well, you know, there's a lot of food thrown away at restaurants. There's a lot of stuff that's thrown away just because it doesn't meet standards for, like, the grocery store. It's like, let's start there. And I actually had asked Dr. Schindler about that. He actually did a study with some of his grad students where they looked at, I think they took 30 white-tailed deer, and they processed it down to, like, the very last potential calorie to find out how much is wasted, even in, like, a deer that, say you go and you shoot a deer and then you take it to the process and get it all done. He said it was between like 13 to 30 days worth of human nutrition that gets wasted in a single white-tailed deer.
Whoa.
So, like...
Well, here's the problem with that idea. Waste is only if you do something with it. If you leave it in the field, there's no waste.
Right.
Like, if you just killed a deer, it just left it there. There's no waste. Mm-hmm. You're feeding animals.
Right, that's true.
They're going to absolutely destroy that thing. It's going to be gone in a short period of time, including the bones. They'll eat the bones, and if they don't eat the bones will eventually deteriorate and become part of the soil. This is what happens when animals die.
Sure. So I guess maybe the way to look at it then is like, if we're looking to if our objective is to feed as many people as possible and we're maximizing the amount of nutrients we can acquire from a specific thing, like, we're leaving a lot on the table, or we're giving a lot to different areas, like different animals and things that are eating.
Well, we're doing it wrong. You know, we're putting our waste in bags, and then we're throwing it into the landfills. Have you seen they did this aerial study of Los Angeles? They're trying to find out where most of the methane comes from. They were trying to figure out, it's fucking landfills, man. Yeah. Landfills are disgusting. And this is not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be animals are supposed to have access to what's left over. I mean, this is what would happen if a bear killed a moose, right? If a bear killed a moose, it's going to consume a big portion of the body, and then it's going to leave whatever's left, and then rodents and vultures and then eventually insects and bacteria are going to break it down. And this is a natural cycle of life for animals. This is how it's supposed to be. What we do is we take it, we cut it up, we eat some of it, we throw some of it away. We put that in a plastic bag. We zip tie it. We dig a fucking hole in the ground. And we throw that bag in there. It's ludicrous.
Yeah.
We know better. We do know better. We understand the whole process of these things breaking down in the wild and what happens to them. We understand that there's animals that their entire diet consists of eating animals that other animals have killed, and they leave some of it behind. We're supposed to leave it behind. It's supposed to be a part of the whole cycle of life. We are supposed to compost. All these things are supposed to be natural. When I was a kid, my mom and my stepdad were part of this cooperative farm thing, and we started composting. And we didn't do it for very long because we eventually wound up moving, and we stopped being a part of this thing. But I thought it was really interesting because I was a little kid. I think like, oh, I never thought of that before. You take your food waste and you separate it from like paper. You know, like you have your paper waste, and then you have like leftover tomatoes or something like that, and all that would go into one specific bin, and that bin would go into this big thing. It was made with like chicken wire and leaves, and you had a lid over it, and like it was a wood box, and you would throw everything in there, and it would all sort of rot in compost, and then you would take that stuff and you would use it in the garden. And this is how composting is done. This is how fertilizer is made, and this is what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is like small scale regenerative farming. And what we're doing as assholes, we take our food, we put it in fucking bags, we zip tie it shut, and we chuck it in the ground. And it's dumb. It's a really dumb way of doing things.
I just feel like that is something that we could really leverage at the educational level. Like, you know, we've got schools where we're housing these kids, and like, you know, one of the biggest hurdles I think is that we got them indoors sitting in desks for 7-8 hours a day. And then why not get them out and learn that and do that? And you have these mini little like regenerative areas. So
Sure.
Then you learn it, and then it doesn't get forgotten when you're an adult as easily.
But we're so enamored with this idea of working. You know, we're so enamored with this idea of getting a job. We're so enamored with this idea of the structure of civilization as it stands in 2019 is the way to go. So we're teaching kids how to complete this life that they're born into, the way it's established for their parents, the way it's established for their neighborhood. Get in your car, drive to work all day, come home, you know, eat what you can, throw the rest of the garbage, go back to work in the morning. And this is nonsense. This is not how you have to do it. You don't have to do anything. There's a bunch of different ways to live this life, and there's only 100 years if you're lucky. So this thing that we're setting up kids to essentially be as miserable as everybody else before them, doing the exact same thing that everybody else has done. Like maybe you can get lucky, like I have been, or like you've been, and you find something that you actually enjoy doing. Sure. Then you get lucky. Like, oh my God, you know, Zach found a job that he really loves, and he got really good at it, and now he actually has joy in what he does. But there's a lot of different places in this country alone where you can live and you could do things in a non-traditional manner, and you can get by, and you'll probably be healthier and happier than someone that gets stuck in the same goddamn civilization cycle, this industrialized cycle that we're all in. And we don't teach kids that. What we teach kids is here's history, here's math, get your SATs in, get the score, go to the college that you want, get a job. And this is the standard path that seems to be rewarded. And this is what, and if you say, well, I'm going to drop out and find myself, oh, good luck, loser. You know, you're going to fuck up your life. You know, what are you doing, man? You're not even going to college? Jesus Christ. Like, and it's very unfortunate that we have this incredibly rigid system. And it really makes people feel like, made me feel like a failure. I didn't fit into the system. I just, because I have ADD or whatever, emotional issues, whatever I had, I just could not sit still in class and concentrate. I had way too much fucking energy. This was just not for me. I was twiddling my thumbs and tapping the floor and looking at the clock.
It's 3 o'clock yet? It's 3 o'clock.
When that fucking thing hit, I was gone. And I didn't want to do homework. I literally didn't do any homework my entire high school. I just got by being smart enough to pass tests by learning what I learned in class and not putting in any fucking extra effort. I just wanted to get out. And I found something that I was good at. I figured it out. I got lucky that I did that. But for a lot of people, they just live these lives of frustration, you know, and they never do find and they're not taught to find a thing. And there's also, I think, there's a great satisfaction to working on something that you enjoy, whether it's working with your hands or working on something that's creative, and working with the land. You know, you talk to people that run their own little organic farms. Like I know this couple that runs an organic farm, and man, they talk about their food. They talk about the vegetables they grow and the stuff they grow. They like beam.
They're excited about it.
They're excited. It's a natural. There's a gravity that we have towards that. It's a natural human reward to be able to cultivate your own food. If you can make a salad out of some stuff that you grew yourself, man, that feels amazing. It really does. And there's people that could be making a living doing that, and they're never encouraged to do so, and they might be way happier than selling insurance.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree.
And you can feed other people too, man. I mean, that's the other thing. Like, if you could figure out a way to run an organic garden, and you do compost, you don't use pesticides, and you do everything organic, and everything is regenerative, and you actually can feed people. My God, like, how good would you feel?
Pretty satisfying.
Yes, yeah, I would think really satisfying. It's not for everybody, but it's got to be for somebody.
Yeah.
And they're not being no.
So I got a probiotic for gut health, zinc, vitamin D, and vitamin B12. Gotta keep them vitamins in there. That vitamin B will give you your energy. That vitamin D, that shit good for a lot of stuff. Oh man. Supposed to go move some furniture today. And I really don't feel like it. Yeah, boy, I don't want to go move no furniture today. My damn calf muscle still won't come back yet. You still see how skinny my leg is right there, yeah? It was way skinnier than that before, but damn, I wish my damn calf would just come back. Legs look funny as shit. Oh well. Could have been worse. Yeah, because that motherfucker just is not there. Are we almost at 2 hours already? A friend request. Damn, yo. I don't really do friend requests on PlayStation, man, because nobody don't play games with me, so I don't even see the point of being on my friends list. You know? Alright, we're gonna faint for a little bit longer. I'm gonna take a break and do something else, I guess. I don't know what else, but
This is Joseph Backham with the Family Policy Institute. Another exciting day here in the office. A little after 10 o'clock this morning, we were visited by media asking about a 10:30 meeting, which we had no idea about. But what we didn't know is that a protest had been planned for our office at 10:30 this morning in a press release.
Payday? That's that. The bank robbery job? I think I do got that in my library.
Was that 3 people from a local transgender group?
The bank house, the bank heist.
Postcards saying, "I support trans, economic, and racial justice," and with a note on the back addressed to me saying all of these things, ultimately concluding in Initiative 15.
Yeah, that Payday? I think I'm pretty sure that's in my library. They gave that shit to us free one time, yo.
However, we're going to outside of our office and have a conversation with them about the subject, hear what some of their concerns are, and provide some.
Payday. I remember that shit with the dudes had the suits on with the clown face or something. The clown masks.
Then watch the news coverage of this and see if
I actually forgot like the gameplay on there. It's like I don't know. It's just basically it's third person, right? Or is it first person? Third person. It's a third person shooter. Make restrooms safe for all.
What do you say to people that have concerns, with children, and say that they would like to be able to take their child into a restroom and not be confronted with someone that presents in a different way than their child's ready to deal with?
I think children can already deal with a lot, and if the parent is uncomfortable, then maybe the parent should be the one going into the space.
I don't know. I think children deal with a lot. If I had a little daughter, and we're out at a restaurant,
you're speaking.
And she has to go to the bathroom, I don't want my daughter to be in the restroom with a man.
Recognizing everyone's right.
Even if the man
right
identifies as a woman, it's just like, I don't know.
And remove me from the bathroom that I should be in.
Well, there are some people who are not comfortable sharing certain spaces with people of the opposite gender.
Yeah, you were born a boy, so you should be in the man's room, not the ladies' room. So, what bathroom? That's the bathroom you should be in.
I'm the father of 3 daughters, and there are a lot of parents and there are grandparents when they send their kids to school, but they have the expectation that when they dress or undress or what they're exposed to, that they will have some control. And the new rule disempowers them so that kids in school and women and children just in public at the gym, they no longer have control over who they expose themselves to in their situations. And I think that's not respectful of them. So ultimately, when we resolve this, we have to do so in a way in which everybody's voice came to the table and reach a solution for everybody's rights.
Why are you trying to pass legislation which actually endangers our public safety?
How?
Public safety.
How?
Here's what we agree. Yeah, everybody believes in public safety, and everybody wants everybody to be safe. And you have rights, and I have rights, and everybody has rights. But sometimes, in the public space, in the community, those rights come into conflict. And so what we need to do is we need to have a solution where everybody's rights are allowed to be taken into consideration.
By removing
what has happened with this rule is that it is now illegal for the owner of the gym that I go to, if I tell them that I am female, they face legal liability if they try to stop me from going into the organization. That's the legal framework that exists right now, and that's a problem because there are tens of thousands of sexual predators who are registered in Washington State, and it gives them a legal right to be present somewhere. They don't belong. We would all agree they don't belong there, but they have a legal right to be present there just by declaring themselves to be that gender. And that is not responsible public policy. And that's why ultimately this rule has to be.
So, I think we're not going to
Well, obviously we're not going to agree.
Yeah,
but
you accept our, we accept
no, I love it. I love the toilet. I think it's beautiful, and we will display it. And so of course we will. And you guys, next time we'll have a conversation. I love the conversation. You don't necessarily need to bring all these guys with me, because that's more of a start than it is an actual effort to have a conversation and come to understand. I think there's a lot of things we probably already know, if we have chance to have a conversation. Always open to doing that.
Go ahead.
And so feel free to reach out in a less aggressive manner, and I'd be happy to have that conversation. All right. The real story of the day for me is not the protesters themselves, but who was covering the protest. Anybody has any right if they want to show up at some office and dump off postcards or make a point or leave a note or say their piece. But what's interesting about this is how thoroughly it was covered. A press release was sent out by 3 or 4 protesters this morning, and at 10:30, every television station in the city of Seattle and the AP showed up to cover that issue. And really what that's indication of is when they say jump, the press says how high. Why does that matter? Just remember that when it comes to the coverage that you get. They are definitely working for one side of this issue, and they are doing what they're told. Just keep that in mind. This is Joseph Backholm with FP Editing.
You're endangering my safety. No. If a restaurant or whatever kind of establishment provides a unisex bathroom, fine. Men and women can use this, alright, fine. But if it's designated specifically for women, it's like, yo, sorry for you. Alright. Let's take a break real quick and I'm gonna come back and we're gonna paint some hair. Paint some hair a little bit, and then that'll probably be the last thing I do for this session. And I'll take a little break. I'll be right back. Is my phone even in here? Oh. Let me listen to it.
This is a message for all the U.S. homeowners.
If you owe less than $356,362 on your home and you haven't missed a mortgage payment in 6 months, you should check out Congress's mortgage stimulus program for the middle class. You will be shocked when you see how much that you can save.
We have reviewed a lot of woke commercials on this channel, trying to figure out what products the companies are actually selling. Obviously, what they're really selling is just woke politics, but theoretically, there's some product in there somewhere. My record has not been great. Okay, I'd actually prefer not even to get into what my record is here. It hasn't been terrific. There is a subspecies of woke commercial that is really proliferating these days. That would be the white guilt woke commercials. We covered these a few months ago. I now want to try my hand at them again because we're seeing them everywhere. Well, we have corporate America telling us to be less white, which I think I'm doing a pretty good job at, actually, as a part Sicilian American. We really have to narrow and figure out where exactly this is all coming from. Before we get started, this video is sponsored by Home Title Lock, leader in home title protection. More from them later. First, let's roll the tape.
You love me. You love me not.
Was that first guy white? It was kind of dubious.
You love black culture, but do you love me? You love how I sound, my voice, these beats, this flow. Not me though, right? You love how I look, my hair, this skin, but me, nah. We don't get to exist. We're forced to survive.
It kind of looks like they exist.
We still fight. We still play while the world burns. On fields that ain't even level.
Man, I don't. Like a hair product? I don't.
All men are created equal.
Having a problem getting your family to the table at dinner time? John F. Martin has your solution. If you have a grill, put John F. Martin sausages, hot dogs, ham steaks, and ribs on the grill. The aroma and sizzle will bring them to the table every time. And nothing is easier than grilling John F. Martin sausages, hot dogs, ham steaks, and ribs. The family loves it. Nothing brings family to the table like John F. Martin. And everyone loves John F. Martin Grill Time.
Bringing family to the table. Rise and shine, All-Stars. RuPaul's Drag Race All-Stars is sashaying to its new home exclusively on Paramount Plus. I love Plus. Fast, the class, and all do fast. She's back. This is it, round 2. I see talent, talent, talent.
I have been dreaming about the second chance, so get the right.
It's a showstopper. You look incredible. Back to claim my crown. This season of All-Stars is going to be a game within a game. I am gagged, Carl. The girls are out for blood.
All-Stars is a game of friendships and strategy. You want to be here, show it. This is redemption time.
Just not to come at you, but it is to come at me. Hold on. Don't do that. Oh, my God. Okay. Relationships are going to have to come into play. Get ready. It was right on point.
I am obsessed with your outfit. Amazing job all around.
This is not enough. Can my All-Stars rise to the challenge? Let's do this.
That's my favorite part. You hate us so deeply, but you're still so impressed. Why can't you see? There's history in our skin.
There is not history in the skin.
I'm him. He's me. She, us, we.
Are they Eric's Spoiler?
Are all black.
Burning a white sheet.
Love me or not.
I'm gonna say like still a hair product or something. Because they talk about the hair specifically. I don't.
We gonna be us. We gonna break bread.
Okay. Cool.
We gonna defy gravity.
You're probably not.
You love my culture, but do you love me?
I I love this woke culture. I don't like that woke culture at all. Beats by Dre. Ah, man, do I get any points? Because the ears are next to the hair. So I don't know. I probably don't get any points for that. I guess they did keep saying, like, you love my music. And something tells me, I don't know, just judging by that narrative, I don't know that I will love that guy's music. I don't really love Dr. Dre's music. I guess there are some exceptions. That's really weird. That's a really weird one. Because it hadn't occurred to me until I watched that commercial that there could be a difference between existing and surviving. Did you hear? He goes, we're not allowed to exist. We have to survive. Well, I'm no metaphysician, okay? I'm no philosopher, but it seems to me if you are surviving, that presupposes that you have existed. But that's what this is all about. It's just like words. You know, it's words that don't mean anything together, jumbled up, but if you say it, you know, in like a really cool, deep, slow kind of voice, a little gravelly over here, then it sounds really, really profound. All right, well, yeah, I don't get any points for that. Let's try the next one. Racism is everywhere. No, it's not. Like, what?
We gotta keep pushing forward.
I guess BLM is pretty racist, that's true. And they are everywhere now, so the truth is silence is not an option. Actually, it is. Silence, most times people are talking, silence might be better. What injustice? What specifically are you talking about?
Perfectly clear. Black Lives Matter.
Wow, brave. Wow, I haven't heard that, except from every corporation and politician and the university and Hollywood and just everyone who has any power in this country. Yeah.
Covering business insights shouldn't be a leap of faith. Using the prescriptive data modeling techniques learned in the business analytics program online at Grand Canyon University.
Grand Canyon University.
To leadership. Data drives innovation.
You can learn this shit online.
Data analysts provide efficiencies to help reach more customers more often.
Don't say it.
What do you?
I'm not. It's wrong.
Anyway.
BLM. I don't know, man. Like,
we coming up here for now. You ate yet?
Yes.
Yeah, I ain't want you to eat up anyway.
Venture again.
I ate without you.
I was wondering if it was just kind of like a PSA
sure did eat
or
without
something
you.
like that. The NBA.
I brought you a bong upstairs.
Think about the rich irony of the NBA saying racism is everywhere. Majority of NBA players.
I'm glad I went early. Everybody was in the fucking store at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Did you say most sort of NBA players come from? Are they Irish? Are they Tibetan?
Well, white men's always
in America, black people are
like the Chick-fil-A at grocery
Is
stores.
more than 12% of the NBA black? Well, that's evidence of racial disparity. Racism is everywhere in the NBA, if you ask me. What a joke, man. What a woke joke that is, huh? You never thought that COVID could cost you your home, right? You probably thought that was a joke.
I listen to him a lot, yo.
Cybercrime is up 75%.
But that's the thing,
By far
like
the most serious cybercrime to worry about is
even Crowder, like they make all their little black people jokes and shit, but I don't know. I find it very helpful to listen to opposing points of view, so that shit can strengthen my shit. Because I actually agree with this guy sometimes, but then when he was like, "Oh, black people already got some form of reparation," it's like I don't remember.
Is he saying because there's more NBA players that we have something?
Well,
because I just walked in. So.
Woke white guilt ads #2. And I didn't catch from the beginning. I started playing them when I went down. So
he looks like a fucker though.
He's just talking about all these different advertisements that like promote things for black people, I guess. Woke black woke white guilt ads.
Wow.
But then,
title
should there be white
this
guilt?
Is something I didn't really know about until recently. I was hearing about cybercrime.
If nothing else, there should be white awareness.
Are now after our homes, and it is easier than
I'm
you
not
would
saying
think
you gotta
to get
feel guilty
the
for what
title
your
documents
grandparents
to our
did,
homes
but
online.
you should be
The
aware.
thief finds your home's title and forges your signature on a quitclaim deed stating that you sold your home.
But everybody else got reparations, so it's like, why don't black people get
He takes
reparations?
out loans on your home and leaves you in debt. You won't know about
See,
this
we already
until
got
late
it.
payment for eviction notices arrive. Insurance doesn't cover you.
Affirmative
and neither does
action
your common identity
and
theft program.
some of the
That
things
is
that
why
came
I
behind
would
the civil
strongly
rights
recommend
movement
you protect your
and a
own.
lot of
The
other
home title
shit.
law.
While people were
Instant
fighting
home
just
title
for
law
equal
detects
rights,
someone's
that's a little
input
bit different.
with anyone's
And
own
well,
title.
We gave you
It can
equal
help to
rights.
shut it
That's your
down.
civil.
Go
That's
to
your
HomeTitleLock.com.
reparations. You
Register
got
your
affirmative
fucked up.
action.
That's some
How
fucked up
come?
shit
How
to
come
say.
black
Use
students
code
get into
Knowles
college with lower test scores than white students or Asian students? That's your form of reparations.
HomeTitleLock.com. Now,
Yes, because
when you
that's
feel
the way it
protected,
should fucking
let's
be.
return.
If everybody had an equal
Right.
opportunity, it wouldn't be that way in the first fucking place.
My producers have informed me that there's nothing to guess.
I just
for
want
these
to tell them,
videos.
like,
These were
okay,
just
so go live
videos
in a
submitted
black
by you,
neighborhood and talk that
the
shit.
viewers, of
Or go be black for
great
it.
instances of white guilt in promotional materials, and I just can't resist but taking a look at them. So let's roll the tape.
So what commercial is
Is your
this?
skin
It shows
color
white
holding you
guilt.
back?
No.
Are you tired of systemic prejudice ruining your day? I'd like to tell you about a new solution to racial inequality. White Squad. Professional White Advantage Services. White Squad
This
is
is
a team
obviously
of
a
carefully
parody.
selected white representatives who act on behalf of people of
I don't know,
color.
it says
We're your
whitesquad.com.
stand-ins for life's racially unbalanced situation.
Like applying to college? Is that probably that wouldn't be a great service? Then you'd have a disadvantage if you were to.
Just like a bikini top.
Okay, you want to show the world about this?
Having legal troubles? White Squad will appear in court for you, giving you the
Yeah,
full
it's hot as
benefits
hell.
of being a white person in the legal system. How do we do it? We've assembled a team of reassuring white people, each with
This is
unique areas
definitely
of
a parody.
effectiveness. We pre-screen all of our employees to ensure their names and appearances provide maximum benefits to you. That's why our services come with a 100% advantage guarantee.
I had
money
no
back.
grades, but I couldn't get a scholarship. Then I called White Squad, and I was decorating my dorm room in no time.
Then I called White Squad and was actually disadvantaged by law in applying to college. Yeah, wow, great idea.
Yo. I never went to college, so I don't know how affirmative action works, if my SATs in my college transcript, because I actually went to a private high school that was strictly structured for above average kids. So, I don't know, like...
I don't know what he's talking about, because I feel like the SAT scores, like, they want the highest of the high scores. Like, it don't really matter what color you are. Like, they are racist when it comes to a lot of shit, but when it comes to the SAT shit and you apply it for a school, they're going to take the people with the highest scores first. So I really don't know what
But
he's
then
talking
that's what
about.
I don't... And like,
All my
like-
friends that got under, like, 1,200 on their SAT, they didn't get into anything but, like, a junior community college or some shit like that. Even me, I didn't do great on my SAT. I got accepted into Howard, but I didn't get accepted into Harvard, though.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know how affirmative action is supposed to work anyway, because I never went to college, so I can't really argue that point, because I never studied that shit. Like, how does I need to just Google or YouTube, how does affirmative action benefit people of color? And then once again, like I say, with everything that every black person has ever fought for to gain equality or more rights, or everything that the federal government so-called has granted us or given us, it's not just for black people. Every minority can partake in everything that the black community has accomplished for themselves.
Just like, how can a white person go to a HBCU and apply as a minority? They can do that shit. So I don't like when he says shit like that. It's like, okay, yeah, we can apply at a white school as a minority, but so can a white person if they go to an HBCU, and they're doing that shit too.
Yeah. And so that's my argument against it. Is like, okay, well, we gave you this, we gave you that, and we gave you this, and we gave you that,
It's
and
not
that
just
and
for
that
us.
should be and that should be your reparations. It's like, okay, I get that. I can see how this and this and this and this and this could try to make up for slavery, but at the same time, it's not just specifically for us. So if a Mexican American can qualify for every minority grant and everything that I qualified for, then the reparations isn't for us, because their ancestors didn't suffer through the same thing that my ancestors did. So once again, like, that breaks down your whole fucking we already gave you reparations argument. Like, no, you didn't. Because any minority or any person of color can take advantage and take benefits of the same things that you say I have advantages of. Like, that's stupid.
Like, do we have more opportunity now? Yeah, because we can at least drink out of the same fucking water fountain, but it doesn't mean that shit's better or changed, because then those people just went and had kids, and now their kids are running this shit and trying to keep us out of shit too. Like that white lady we watched, and she was vandalizing that black statue. Like, for what? For what? And I guarantee you she won't get charged for that shit, but a black person do it, they going down. If that's the case, whatever y'all gave to the Jewish people, I want that. Whatever y'all gave to everybody else, I want that.
I want land like they gave the Indians. The Indians got reservations. The Indians have their own lands where they can govern themselves and all that shit. Yo, that's what I want. The land. I don't give me incentives or opportunities. I want something tangible.
Or some free education.
That's wealth.
Yeah, I'll take a free college degree.
Give me my motherfucking land. I'm gonna call White Squad.
Professional
White Squad.
What? Who is putting this out? What channel is this on? It's just some commercial out there.
No, it's a
White
parody.
Squad
You know it
is
is.
part of Look Different, which is MTV's multi-year campaign that works to shed light and combat bias based on race, gender, and sexual orientation. Apparently, this according to the description from the video. It's funny, I guess, because it's totally divorced from reality. The video is evidence itself that it's divorced from reality, because there's only one racial group that it is publicly and socially acceptable to deride and denigrate and mock, and that's white people. And it's not only socially acceptable, it's actually encouraged by the dominant culture. It's encouraged by MTV. One of the strongest arguments against the point of this video is that you're allowed to make this video. Whereas if you were to make that video about black people or Mexicans or whatever, any other racial group, you would have your life ruined. You would
What do
be
you mean? The
ostracized.
black girls had the show, had the skit about the bad bitches.
They're just a total
Black Lady
fantasy.
sketch show.
Yeah,
It's called Black Lady.
The whole time
we pick at ourselves too. So don't say, oh, we just make sketches about white people and white people are the only people who can be made fun of. We make fun of ourselves all the time. Dave Chappelle with when keeping it real goes wrong. You know what I'm saying? Like, we pick at ourselves constantly,
And
bro.
they actually used that example. They said, "Oh yeah,
As a matter of
it's
fact, we
really
pick
hard
everybody,
to
but
get college scholarship,
ourselves
but,
especially."
then I pretended to be white. In reality, it's exactly the opposite from that.
He
But
hates black people.
that's why you find it on television, right? Because it is
No,
a
I don't.
fantasy.
This is what I get
And
about some
reality,
people like this.
Of course,
You don't hate black people.
Nobody would want to talk.
Motherfucker love white
Except for
people.
crazy people who are probably going to get
And that's the
deplatformed on
difference. And
YouTube.
that's
If you
the
in any
same
way
boat I'm in.
question
I don't
this
hate
dominant
white people.
liberal narrative.
But I
All right,
love
next
black
one. This
people.
looks like it comes from Cartoon
Some
Network.
people may see that as racist.
About black.
I feel like I like everybody. I love black people. Well, I don't like
Alright,
nobody.
class. Can anyone tell me who invented the light bulb?
I'm saying I do not hate
not
white people at
entirely
all,
true.
yo.
It is entirely true.
That's a
Couldn't
my best
white
friend
You
people
white.
said
be
it's entirely true that Edison did the light bulb. You just said that's entirely true.
That's just not true.
Oh, you said not. Because she said it's not true.
Cartoon Network about black history. Let's roll it.
All right, class.
But
Can
black
anyone tell me who
This is from
invented the
Steven
light bulb?
Universe.
Thomas Edison. That's not entirely true.
It is
The
entirely
light
true.
bulb could more rightfully be attributed to Lewis Latimer, the black inventor behind the filament inside the bulb.
That's just not true.
Yes, it is.
Light bulbs affordable and efficient enough for the general public, bringing electric
Well,
light
motherfucker
into
can-
households around the world.
Well, so now you know.
When a motherfucker can fight with a fact.
Wait, is that it? Hold on. We're not going to mention why he invented the filament? To create a better standard of living for people who had only just been freed from slavery? Are we going to ask why kids are apparently learning about Thomas Edison? Thomas Edison! Ugh, and not learning about Lewis Latimer? These textbooks are
Because
incomplete.
Thomas Edison invented the light bulb.
Warriors,
Lewis
black
Latimer
medieval
sort of
knights,
improved
black
it.
classical musicians, black
So
cowboys,
what?
black fighter pilots.
No, because Thomas Edison paid for patents. He had a whole staff of people helping to create his inventions and his ideas and bring them to fruition, just like Lewis Latimer. And he seen the potential in his filament that when you put an electrical charge to it, it would shine bright as shit. He's like, well, goddamn, if we use that and we use this and this new way to shape glass and we put all these things together, we can have a light bulb. And so, yeah, did Thomas Edison invent the light bulb? Not technically. Not by himself. No, he didn't. Did Lewis Lattimore play a major part in the light bulb? Yes, he did. A black dude. So don't say this isn't real history, bro.
That's all I'm saying. He sounds like he's trying.
And at the same time,
it's good to see where his head is at. Like you said, it's just like, bro, you lost me.
But then you have to be able to argue against people like this. So when you hear his arguments and hear his side of it, then you can say, no, you're not right, and that's not correct.
Yeah,
and then
you don't
at the
want
same
black
time,
people to have shit.
you can still learn because this guy, everybody knows something that you don't know. So I just be waiting to try to learn something from him. But you ain't gonna sit here and shoot me to shit like you're telling your audience who is unaware of these facts that that's not true. But when I don't know, media is weird, and it is a major network. So they're gonna always throw their little subliminals and their messages and their cartoons and everything. But did she make some actual facts? Yes. And that's what motherfuckers hate. Like, to give a black man credit for anything, bro. Without the filament, you won't have a light bulb.
Now I want to go watch that because that's Steven Universe, and the older sister, they're like colors, like different pink and whatever. But the sister got an afro, so you could tell like they're supposed to be black.
Where are they? I worry about you humans because you only live, about 100 years? You rely on these stories to know your own history. Thanks to systemic racism, most of your storytellers...
Is this seriously on Cartoon Network?
Which leaves you with an incomplete picture. Ask yourself as you're learning history, who's telling the story?
I mean, this is presenting reality in as much as it's an angry liberal white lady yelling at us all. I think the scolding is certainly has to do with reality, but what she's saying just isn't true. Thomas Edison invented the light bulb, and I remember Joe Biden, I think, brought this up. He said, hey, Corn Pop, listen, Mr. Malarkey, Thomas Edison, a white guy, he didn't invent the light bulb, it was a black guy named Lewis Latimer. It's just not true. Reuters actually even admitted this. Reuters had a fact check, said that Lewis Latimer invented a longer lasting filament for light bulbs, so he kind of improved upon the light bulb, but he did not invent the light bulb. Ronald Reagan had this line, he said, it's not so much that our liberal friends are ignorant, it's not what they don't know, it's that they know so many things that aren't so. This angry cartoon lib lady who probably has one of those pink hats and marches around on weekends, she is so certain, the people who made this cartoon are so certain of what they're saying, but it just isn't true. Okay, and what they're doing, though, is a brilliant strategy. I mean, we can make fun of it all we want, but it's brilliant because the reason the left always goes after education, why they've taken such a keen interest in education and now in sort of children's books and Dr. Seuss and children's cartoons, is because if you can shape impressionable minds when they're still being molded, those changes have a far greater chance of sticking than if you were to present this argument. If they presented this argument on some adult network, not like an adult, not like XXX, but like on a network for adults, it wouldn't work because you'd say, oh, wait, Thomas Edison didn't invent the light bulb? Hold on, oh yeah, that's just not true. Okay, never mind. But kids aren't going to do that. So they're just going to believe this stuff. All right, let's finish out the tape.
Was this modified to make white readers comfortable? Are major details being left out that would credit people of color and center their point of view? Honestly, I should have asked for script approval before agreeing to do this.
We'll do some rewrites. I'm sorry, we didn't know.
Well, so now you know. I swear.
Even if it wasn't Latimer,
I told you you could go back.
Because I've been looking it up, like, okay.
50 generations
in 1802, Humphrey Davy invented the first electric light. And he experimented with electricity and invented an electric battery. Carbon globe, producing light. His invention was, if it wasn't Latimer, it still wasn't Edison.
Man, motherfuckers been doing that since Egypt.
That's what I'm saying. Like, motherfuckers been doing that, but like Latimer was the first person to literally make it into something.
Just make that shit endure.
Was that Robin DiAngelo?
Right.
I think that actually was. I'm not even sure this was a cartoon. I think that just was Robin DiAngelo.
I would want to fight him too, I swear. I want to fight him already.
That we should all think about is, do you want to be like a normal, adjusted human being who's grateful to people like Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb, and Latimer, who improved it? and sort of like one another, like our country, and be grateful for stuff? Or do you want to be just an angry, scolding, bitter, white liberal lady cartoon? Which do you want to be? Because those are two. That's the political divide, right? Are you on that lady's team, or are you with the rest of us who are laughing at it and trying to set the record straight? Be sure to post.
There's like 5 men who came up with something before Edison.
His snarkiness, his personality says, he's like, oh, you're just angry, but you're happy and you're proud to be white, and I understand that. And our history is written the way we've written our history, and Lewis Lattimore did some stuff, but we don't have to specifically address that. And you're just mad. And then the lady is mad. She's like, yeah, because you're not telling all of history accurately and giving everybody their just dues and acknowledgement of their accomplishments to making our civilization better.
Yeah,
And
like
so
if he
he
would
just
have been
like,
like, oh, he did the filament, but Humphrey did this before this person, and Alexander, he made electricity, and this person did this, and then he came in and did that, I'd be like, all right, but he just straight was like, oh no, Thomas
It's a signal that it might ban the...
He's not camouflaging it well. I saw that from the first 2 sentences.
A little bit. He's not like.
See, this is the thing, right? We might love black people and we just like everybody else, but we're not going out of our way to discredit them or hurt them. We tell the truth. This motherfucker is going out of his way to discredit black people, I feel like. Just from what I just saw.
But when I started following him, like the first video I followed, it was a video about a group of white protesters. It's these white kids protesting like police and like defund the police and all this shit. And then so they're out there protesting and it seems like they're throwing shit at cars that honk at them or whatever reason. And so these white protesters throw a rock at this dude's truck. He stops and he backs up, and the first thing they're like, yo, somebody call the police. But aren't you protesting the police? And then somebody about to fuck you up, but now you want to call the police? And so he pointed out the hypocrisy in that shit too, even with white people. So I don't know.
He's an
Chinese app, TikTok. And since I am not a 15-year-old girl, I do not know very much about TikTok. I have not seen very many TikToks. I don't want my brain to melt and turn to mush. So my producer, Ben, has decided to play a few of these for me because I want to be able to make an informed judgment on whether or not the White House should ban TikTok. Let's take it away. That's me.
Say ban TikTok.
TikTok. I got real Caleb Larkin. That's almost certainly the best content on the entire platform. And I'm pleased that Caleb Lawson can get some views on my behalf. But watch out, buddy, because Xi Jinping is getting all your information when you use TikTok. Let's go to the second one.
Person who has the sheer nerve, the sheer entitled caucasity to say all lives matter, I'm gonna stab you. I'm gonna stab you, and while you're struggling and bleeding out, I'm gonna show you my paper cut and say, my cut matters too.
Trump's orders took my job away from me.
Yeah, so really sad. Obviously, our heart bleeds for this Harvard student who used caucasity, whiteness, as an insult, and who was making either a joke or a threat and a joke or whatever.
Yeah,
What's so
that's
funny,
what I'm saying. He
though,
come
she
at
loses her
everybody.
job because of this. And
it's just that he really
immediately she makes another TikTok.
Because at
Like
first I was like, oh, you supposed to have somebody
you think you would have learned the lesson if you'd gone to Harvard? Maybe not, though. I think there's a lesson in this for all of us, though, which is that the more information we give to children, the more all our jobs are going to be taken away. Okay, next one up. Grandma destroys Trump.
Paying attention to the news, you know that Donald Trump is planning on holding his first political rally post-quarantine on June 19th in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Now, if you don't know why that's a big deal, I want you to Google two phrases: Juneteenth and Black Wall Street. you'll find out why people are really upset about this. So why it's a slap in the face to the black
Oh,
community.
you know what? And
So
you're
we have
like
another TikTok
45 years old, 50 years old. You just learned that shit your damn self. Now that's sad
to go to
too.
this rally. So I recommend all of those of us that want to see this 19,000
Yeah,
Latinos
but this is another a white lady.
go reserve
No, a white
tickets
lady.
now and leave him standing there alone on the stage. What do you say?
I love it when middle-aged white women tell me what is very offensive for the black community. I think that basically describes the Democratic Party, and the far left is very, very white people pretending to be offended on behalf of black people and other racial minorities. This makes sense to me, though, that this is where they would go, because obviously Republicans dominate, conservatives dominate on most social media platforms, YouTube, Twitter, obviously with Trump, Facebook, that's where they live. And so the Chinese spy app would be the social media platform that the left would use to organize. I guess there's an update on this, which is from New York Times. TikTok grandma who helped tank Trump rally now works for Biden. Yeah, well, Biden needs all the help he can get. Thought, oh my, what that young whippersnapper over there, she clearly knows something about the internet. So welcome to the campaign. I wonder if maybe she'll quarantine in the basement with Joe. It'll be a pretty easy campaign to run because no one has to leave their house. Let's move on to the next.
I still can't believe the Biden campaign tried to get me.
Videos. These would
Mr.
be
Prince, would you want to be our delegate in the Northeast Pennsylvania region? No, thank you.
This
I
is
sure
one
do
of the
not.
reasons to allow TikTok to
I
exist
will
is because the left
humbly
outs itself
decline
as being
your
so
offer.
anti-American. First one up.
I'm not
a
about to be
Democrat
on
cry for help.
your political party, brother.
You got rhythm.
That one I like.
She got
That one's pretty
rhythm.
good.
Go, bitch,
Because
go.
no one seriously believes that leftist activists are thrilled with Joe Biden. The best endorsement of him they can muster is that he's not all there mentally, so they can just bully him into doing whatever they want. But that's good. I like airing that out a little bit, pitting the Bernie bros against the Biden whoever, the Biden nobodies, because nobody supports Joe Biden. That's not bad. Next one up, get pumped for the polls.
And wants my vote, then he better pick Animal Crossing as his vice president. Joe Biden, 2020. I can't wait for him to try to appeal to young voters by hitting the whoa on Ellen or some shit. Oh, God. Oh, that's actually going to happen. God, I can't. As soon as he gets on TikTok, and you know he's going to, I'm joining ISIS. And I'm game that. Even if Joe Biden picked the cure for COVID as his running mate, I would still be at the polls like, okay. I just can't wait for the moment he's debating Trump and he accidentally calls Trump Senator Sanders and then tries to fix it by saying something like, hey, Jack, I wish. If he loses to Trump, which, like, I don't want to hear that it's progressives' fault, okay? Because this shit's on you guys. Anyway, vote blue no matter who.
That was pretty good. That's probably my favorite one I've seen so far. I guess it must be that the left thinks that only lefties are on TikTok, which frankly might well be the case. I haven't seen like a lot of conservative videos on TikTok. So they're willing to air this dirty laundry among each other. You know, they put on a good face. They put on, you know, a stiff upper lip when they're talking in the mainstream media to conservatives about how much they like Biden, but they don't really seem to believe that when you talk to them honestly. Next one is Joe Biden's most effective slogan for 2020.
Introducing the Settle for Biden t-shirt.
Settle for Biden.
100% cotton t-shirt will let people know that you'll vote for an old, out-of-touch Democrat in November, but you won't be happy about it. Settle for Biden, because it could be worse. It could be better, but it could be worse.
Yeah, that's fine, but it's not really in the spirit of TikTok. Like, the point of TikTok is these, like, fast cuts, and it's really loose and authentic, and it kind of makes your brain melt. That was just like a produced YouTube video from the mid-2000s. That one not making me too excited for it. There's one here that seems to be fairly honest that is called the Progressive Anthem.
That ain't bad.
I'd like to hear the Progressive
Anthem.
Anthem.
Do that.
I'm ashamed to be an American when all folks are free. And I won't forget the enslaved who died and built this place for free. So I proudly live.
Scranton they're all mad about them digital shit.
It's $2 per hour, so I'm going to be parked there every day with
But
Trump
then,
in the
I don't know, man.
Like if you were out there.
Are there any
See,
actual
Wilkes-Barre still
black
got the
people
old
on
coin
TikTok?
meters, though.
Is that not every video I've seen on TikTok is basically just white liberals,
but people still look like the
usually
older people still
pretending
like
to be
those,
offended on behalf of black people. But I see no evidence so far that there is a single actual black person on TikTok, and not very diverse. Okay, not living up to those high liberal ideals. Next section is the educational side of TikTok. So apparently people, God help us as a country, people are getting their information, like political, social information, from TikTok. Let's see what we can learn.
Now you're in there. I know it was going on.
They do that all the time too, yo. I swear, yo.
And I have this discussion playing through my stream as well.
And I don't know how, I don't know why it does that. It'll pop out and pop in, pop out, pop in. Sometimes it'll be like 4 people in here and it'll be like nobody. Saying nobody's even watching your
To
stream.
me is the most damning is the way Trump stands. So in the top left, there is a picture of from a 1930s medical journal of how people with dementia stand. Now, obviously, these pictures are kind of scary because he stands just like that. And of course, these pictures could be photoshopped, but I've met Trump in person, and he absolutely stands like this.
In this gal's defense, it seems to me she has at least as much credibility as Dr. Fauci at this point. Like, I don't think what she's saying is true or anything, but when you look at the current medical establishment that's been completely wrong about every aspect of coronavirus and still with a straight face tells us what to do because zillions of people are going to die, I got to tell you, she is just as good. I think now that we get those press conferences with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Skor, she has at least as much credibility.
These pictures are kind of scary because he stands just like that. And of course, these pictures could be photoshopped, but I've met Trump in person, and he absolutely stands like this.
In this gal's defense, it seems to me she has at least as much credibility as Dr. Fauci at this point. Like, I don't think what she's saying is true or anything, but when you look at the current medical establishment that's been completely wrong about every aspect of coronavirus and still with a straight face tells us what to do because zillions of people are going to die, I got to tell you, she is just as good. I think now that we get those press conferences with Dr. Fauci and Dr. Skorf, I think we should bring that gal up there too and really round out the the destruction of credibility on the national stage. Next one up is the most damning attack on Trump yet.
He has no lips. How will he get a kiss? Very ugly. No kiss for him.
I guess that one's pretty funny, except with the music and the weird warping and that voice, it does sound to me like what hell sounds like. And TikTok kind of looks like what hell looks like, and it just seems like maybe there's a little bit of a demonic element here. This is making me less likely to want to keep TikTok. Next one up, take that, Trump supporter.
This is the most shit I've seen on TikTok right here. I downloaded the app for something. Matthew sent me a link for something on TikTok he wanted me to see, and I'm like,
and told his subordinates to lie to Congress and solicit the help of a foreign government to
I said I can't with TikTok.
yeah. And so I watched the link that he sent me, and then after that, it was like, I kind of looked through it for a minute, and it's like, nah, I'm good. This is TikTok? No.
Blunt Mover said you and I are the only black people on right now. Just saying, I see how they plot.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It seems like nobody don't really use the PlayStation as a platform to make YouTube anymore.
Two people were killed and at least 30 others wounded in mass shootings.
Over 3,000 patrons?
Right.
Overnight in 3 different states.
Oh, wow.
Authorities said Saturday, stoking concerns that a spike in U.S. gun violence could continue into summer as coronavirus restrictions ease and more people are free to socialize. The attacks took place late Friday or early Saturday in the Texas capital of Austin, Chicago, and Savannah, Georgia. In Austin, authorities said they arrested one of the 2 male suspects. They're still searching for the other, who started shooting early Saturday on a crowded pedestrian-only street packed with bars and restaurants. 14 people were wounded, including 2 critically in the gunfire. They believe it started as a dispute between 2 parties. In Chicago, a woman was killed and 9 other people wounded when 2 men opened fire on a group standing on a sidewalk in the Chatham neighborhood on the city's south side. The shooter also got away and hasn't been identified. That's where Chance the Rapper from. And then, what about Savannah, Georgia? Nothing on the one in Savannah, Georgia yet. I was wondering when that shit was gonna start back up. I mean, it never stopped, but it stopped for a little bit. And it's so crazy, like, if you get bullied, I understand wanting to go shoot your bully, but I just never understood going to shoot up some random people that ain't did nothing.
That's the hard part right there. I don't get that either. I don't get that. I get vengeance and revenge and all of that, but...
Young, emotions, hormones, whatever.
But I'm gonna just go kill everybody. That don't make logical sense to me.
Right, and then it's like, they fucking with you. I would think you would take the gun to school and then eventually snap on them. But to, like, plan that shit for a whole year, but you still letting them bully you in the fucking process, and then for a whole year, and then one day you just go to school and you just kill everybody? Like, But with people like that, you gotta know that they're just not all the way there. But the kids are getting younger and younger that are doing this shit.
Yeah.
Not fucking 10, 11, 12-year-olds doing that shit now.
The one little girl was in 6th grade.
Right. That shit was the craziest thing. It was a girl and she was in 6th grade. And the teacher's like, oh, she just needed a hug. She needed attention. All them kids need hugs. Not just that little girl, but she was too young. The next thing you know, you're going to have damn 8-year-olds coming to school with guns.
Like I said, man, something is going on in white America that we don't understand, you know.
Right?
We don't
Should have
really...
kept school segregated, apparently. Because Jesus.
We don't understand what's going on with these kids in white America.
So I'm saying, in high school, you might have a couple fights with some young black boys or some young black girls. But for the most part, it ain't gonna be motherfuckers shooting each other up or nobody coming to school and just blasting everybody. Like,
no,
black people not doing that.
No, we don't work like that.
No, that's what I said. We might fight somebody for talking shit, being disrespectful, but same thing with white people, they fight too. But they the only ones that come to school with guns. And mainly men. I was shocked it was a girl.
Damn, this coming out good, yeah.
Yeah, I've loved this piece since the beginning. It's so cute.
Alright, I'll probably highlight her glasses a little bit and then take a break. You've been in here for a little minute.
Mover said, I don't mess with TikTok. And he said, I didn't hear about that. I've been...
In our Patreon, 15 contractors that we pay out.
White House returns $2 billion from Trump's border wall funds to the military.
Why, Texas already said... Texas governor and the other, I think Arizona said they already gonna finish building that wall, yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at it and it says it's part of it was already built up. I just had to post it with the laughing face, like. The former president built 52 miles at an average cost of $46 million per mile. God damn! Yo, he was going in. You get a wall. You get a wall. Oh my God.
Yo, that's
I'm shocked that Trump didn't win again, yo. I'm not shocked, but I'm still I'm in disbelief.
Yeah, I thought Trump was gonna make it.
Yeah, how often is it that a president doesn't get all 8 years, yo?
Uncle Trump. So you couldn't do the 8.
They needed a Democrat though. You already know that. Listen to Dr. Fauci and listen to the Democrats.
Mm-hmm. They had to push Uncle Trump out, yeah.
Right.
And that was my whole thing too. Like, yo, presidents don't normally do just one term, yo. And not in my lifetime. And not even the few presidents before my lifetime. Like, most presidents go ahead and get their fucking 8 years. Nixon was the last president who only did one term because he resigned, yeah. But when was that? That was in the 70s? And it took all this time for another president to only do one term? I was like, damn. Oh, they're going to vote Trump out. Trump ain't getting out of there, man. Trump going to do 2 terms just like Reagan did 2 terms and Bush did 2 terms and Motherfucking Bush Jr. did 2 terms. Clinton did 2 terms, and he
I was
got
more shocked that Trump won in the first place. But once he won, it was like, oh, he's gonna win again.
Yeah.
Right.
Things may in fact be true. I mean, I don't know if you've been on the receiving end of recent rumors about our conversation about UFOs very likely changing in the near term, right? But like there was just a Washington Post article and a New Yorker article, and I've received some private outreach, and perhaps you have. I know other people in our orbit have people who are claiming that the government has known much more about UFOs than they have let on until now. And this conversation is about to become more prominent, and it's not going to be whatever, whoever's left standing when the music stops. It's not going to be a comfortable position to be super rigorous scientific skeptic saying there's no there, who's been saying there's no there for the last 75 years, right? The short version is it sounds like the Office of Naval Intelligence and the Pentagon are very likely to say to Congress at some point in the not too distant future that we have evidence that there is technology flying around here that seems like it can't possibly be of human origin, right? Now, I don't know what I'm going to do with that kind of disclosure, right? Maybe it's going to be nothing, no follow-on conversation to really have, but that is such a powerfully strange circumstance to be in, right? I mean, it's just, what are we going to do with that? If in fact that's what happens, right? If in fact the considered opinion, despite the embarrassment it causes them, of the U.S. government, of all of our intelligence, all of the relevant intelligence services, is that this isn't a hoax. There's too much data to suggest that it's a hoax. We've got too much radar imagery. There's too much satellite data, whatever data they actually have. There's too much of it. All we can say now is something's going on, and there's no way it's the Chinese or the Russians or anyone else's technology. That should arrest our attention, collectively to a degree that nothing in our lifetime has. And now one worries that we're so.
But that's the thing. We're so
jaded and confused and distracted
and desensitized because you've been fed all these alien conspiracies and movies and propaganda for fucking 40 years. Now nobody don't know what to think about this shit. And so when the Pentagon does say, we don't know what it is, but we know it's not human made, it's like the whole world just like passed that shit over, like, oh, okay. Yo, these motherfuckers just said humans ain't make that shit. Hello. Humans. Like, not the Chinese, or the Russians, or Korea. Nobody. Humans didn't make it. And, I don't know. Everybody's still like, yeah, fuck it. Yeah. So, yeah, so now what's the next step, Pentagon? Okay. Y'all got some shit on camera that the fucking Air Force has seen, that the Navy has seen. Okay, you said humans didn't make it. Okay. So is this something natural? Is it like a natural phenomenon? Or what is it? What's next? What do you say next after that? And that's what they haven't said yet. You ain't gotta tell me what it is. Tell me what you think it is. Huh? Just tell me what you think it is.
Oh my God.
We don't know. Okay, you don't know. But what do you think it is?
No, what do you think?
You think it may be? That's what I want to know. Don't keep telling us, oh, it's this and that, man. What do you think it is, Pentagon? I want some answers, man.
Less coverage than Obama's tan suit did, a bunch of years ago. It's just,
Father left
who knows how we'll
$80,000
respond to that? But
pennies for
it's
child
just to say
support on
that
the front lawn.
the need for us to tell ourselves an honest story about what's going on and what's likely to happen next is never going to go away, right? And it's important. It's
thought
just
there was a dollar sign
the,
right
the,
there. I was
the
about to
division
say,
between me and
that's
every
still
person
petty,
who's
though. The level
defending
of petty.
traditional religion is
80,000 divided by 100
where is it that you want to lie to yourself or lie to your kids? Like, where is honesty a liability? And for me, I've yet to find the place where it is, and it's so obviously a strength in almost every other circumstance, because it is the thing that allows you to course correct. It is the thing that allows you to hope, at least, that your beliefs, that your stories are in some kind of calibration with what's actually going on.
Yeah, it is a little bit sad to imagine that if aliens en masse showed up to Earth, they would be too preoccupied with political bickering or to like these like fake news and all that kind of stuff to notice the very basic evidence of reality. I do have a glimmer of hope that there seems to be more and more hunger for authenticity, and I feel like that opens the door for a hunger for what is real. Like people don't want story. They don't want like layers and layers of like fakeness. And I'm hoping that means that will directly lead to a greater hunger for reality and reason and truth. Truth isn't dogmatism. Like, truth isn't authority. I have a PhD and therefore I'm right. Truth is almost the reality is there's so many questions, there's so many mysteries, there's so much uncertainty. This is our best available, like a best guess. And we have a lot of evidence that supports that guess, but it could be so many other things. And like, just even conveying that, I think there's a hunger for that in the world, to hear that from scientists, less dogmatism and more just like, this is what we know. We're doing our best, given the uncertainty, this is true with obviously with virology and all those kinds of things, because everything is happening so fast. There's a lot of, and biology is super messy, so it's very hard to know stuff for sure. So just being open and real about that, I'm hoping will change people's hunger and openness and trust of what's real.
Yeah, well, so much of this is probabilistic. So much of what can seem dogmatic scientifically is you're placing a bet on whether it's worth reading that paper or rethinking your presuppositions on that point. It's like it's not a fundamental closure to data. It's just that there's so much data on one side, or so much would have to change in terms of your understanding of what you think you understand about the nature of the world, if this new fact were so that you can pretty quickly say, all right, that's probably bullshit, right? Like, and it can sound like a fundamental closure to new conversations, new evidence, new data, new argument, but it's really not. It really is just triaging your attention. It's just like okay, you're telling me that your best friend can actually read minds. Okay, well, that's interesting. Let me know when that person has gone into a lab and actually proven it, right? Like, this is not the place where I need to spend the rest of my day figuring out if your buddy can read my mind, right?
Yeah. But there's a way to communicate that. I think it does too often sound like you're completely closed off to ideas, as opposed to saying like this is, as opposed to saying that there's a lot of evidence in support of this, but you're still open-minded to other ideas. Like, there's a way to communicate that. It's not necessarily even with words. It's like, it's even that Joe Rogan energy of it's entirely possible. Just, it's that energy of being open-minded and curious like kids are. Like, this is our best understanding, but you still are curious. I'm not saying allocate time to exploring all those things, but still leaving the door open. And there's a way to communicate that, I think, that people really hunger for.
Earth's core is growing lopsidedly, a new study suggests. And it's been doing that for at least 500 million years.
So it ain't gonna affect us in the next 500 million years.
In the core's eastern half, located under Indonesia, 60% more iron crystals.
Shopping the Jeep Compass? Check out the Bronco Sport. It comes with a...
Think of Earth like a geological Tootsie Pop. LOL. Whoever wrote this is really funny. If you were to peer more than 3,000 miles below your feet in the planet's center, you see a dense solid ball of iron, roughly three-quarters the size of the moon. That iron spheroid is the inner core, and it's nestled inside the planet's molten outer core. Interesting. Not really anything surprising. Just the fact that it said lopsidedly. I had to read that shit. $44 million LA mansion with the Kobe Bryant themed basketball court and an underground car alley. This shit's hot. It's probably the biggest house I've ever seen. You can't really see it, but yeah, that shit is huge. And I see the little Kobe right there. Pierogi Festival.
Oh my god.
With a parade and a cook-off. Adult and infant drown on a beach. A good Samaritan who tried to rescue them. Apollo Beach here on Hillsborough County. There's all types of bad shit happening.
Clean these brushes out. They get strong 3 hours in the studio. Come back up here later on in the day working on some more. It's cloudy as shit. We expecting rain today? It's one of them rainy days. Just chill in the house or work on some art.
Yeah, this is definitely a stay in the house thing.
Oh, we got another YouTube channel. We're gonna start a couples channel. So look out for that too. Be ready to subscribe to our couples channel. Where it's not just me in here boring y'all with this boring ass art.
And education.
Talking about dumbass ancient civilizations and atheism and shit. Crown, what up? I gotta start bringing that art back up here or putting it somewhere.
Yeah.
Alright. Yeah, I need to swap out this dinner.
And we got somewhere to go too.
Where?
Did you forget what you're supposed to go move to?
Yeah, this nigga ain't hit me up, yo. And tomorrow I work on Sunday. I ain't gonna be able to
Can't
move
do it by yourself?
No. I need like a man. I need some man help with that shit, yo.
Yep.
Alright guys, yo, appreciate y'all chilling in the stream with me. Catch y'all next time. Peace.